I never imagined a couple of goats could turn my entire neighborhood against me. Not until the morning I found a bright orange violation notice slapped across my wooden fence, flapping in the breeze like some public execution. The headline in bold, "Immediate compliance required, livestock not permitted." At first I laughed. I mean, Milo and Munch? Livestock? But the signature at the bottom chilled me to the bone. Karen Halberd, newly elected head of the HOA. That's when it all started. The warnings, the threats, the poison on my lawn, and the whispers. He's ruining the neighborhood. It smells like a barn over there. It's just not appropriate. But they didn't know what those goats meant to me, and they had no idea who they were messing with. Where are you watching from? Because this story gets wild. Let me take you back before the notices, the shouting, and the cameras. Back when life was quiet, peaceful. I had just moved into this little corner of a suburban neighborhood, nestled right between the woods and a walking trail. The kind of place where the mornings were filled with birdsong and the smell of fresh-cut grass. Where the mailman knew your name and kids rode bikes till sunset. My house wasn't fancy, but it had soul. Weathered wood, wildflowers in the yard, a porch swing that creaked when the wind picked up. And right in the backyard, 2 goats, Milo and Munch. They weren't just animals to me. They were my companions, my comfort, my healing. You see, a year before I moved here, I lost my younger brother. His death was sudden, and it shattered something in me. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even look people in the eye. Then I found Milo, abandoned at a shelter, and Munch came not long after. They were scrappy, curious, and gentle in a way I didn't expect. They gave me a reason to get out of bed again, to care for something. They weren't loud. They didn't wander. They stayed close to me like shadows. Kids from the neighborhood would stop by to say hi. Some even brought treats, little apple slices, crackers, lettuce. I'd hear them giggling from the kitchen window. Parents told me they'd never seen their kids so eager to visit a neighbor. For a while, it felt like I had found home again. Until Karen moved in. She arrived like a storm in heels, sunglasses always on, lips always pursed, clipboard in hand. At first she smiled, said things like, "Your goats are unique?" But something in her tone felt off, like a threat disguised as a compliment. I should have known then. I should have known that behind those mirrored shades was someone who couldn't stand seeing other people live differently. And she was about to make it her mission to erase everything that made my little world feel whole. It started small, like a shadow creeping in. A few weeks after Karen moved in, I noticed her lingering near the fence during her evening walks, staring at Milo and Munch like they were dangerous creatures. No smile this time. Just cold, calculated silence. Then came the first violation notice. It was taped to my gate, written in stiff legal language, accusing me of harboring livestock in a residential zone. I chuckled at first. There was no rule in our HOA guidelines that banned goats, not a single word. So I wrote a polite response, attached copies of the bylaws, and dropped it off at the HOA mailbox. 2 days later, she showed up in person, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, standing tall like some self-declared sheriff of suburbia. Goats are disruptive, unsanitary, and frankly, beneath the image of our community, she snapped. I calmly told her they were therapy animals. I showed her their vet papers, proof of vaccinations, even a letter from my therapist. She didn't care. What came next felt like a war of attrition. Unannounced HOA inspections started happening. Karen and 2 board members would show up, walk through my property, muttering and scribbling notes. They claimed they were documenting concerns. Soon after, someone filed noise complaints, false ones. Milo and Munch barely made a peep, but the report said they were disturbing the peace. Then my mailbox got knocked over. My gate mysteriously came unlatched. And one morning, I found a dead patch of grass in the middle of the goat's pen. A bitter chemical smell hung in the air. My stomach dropped. Someone had poured bleach or some kind of poison right where they eat and sleep. I called the HOA, filed a report, told them I suspected Karen. They said, "We'll look into it." They never did. Instead, I received a final notice in bold red letters. Remove all unauthorized animals or face legal action and property penalties. I stood there, that letter trembling in my hand. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with fury. They weren't just coming for my goats anymore. They were trying to erase me, my peace, my healing, my life. I remember the night I hit rock bottom. I sat out on the porch, Milo curled beside me, Munch chewing quietly on a stick like nothing was wrong. But I was shaking, angry, tired, defeated. They had the power, the rules, the board. But I had something they didn't, the truth and a community that was watching. So I got to work. I pulled out every page of the HOA bylaws and scoured them line by line. And there it was, a loophole, clear as day. Section 14, Paragraph C. Therapy or emotional support animals, properly registered and documented, shall not be classified as pets or livestock. I had documentation from my therapist, veterinary records, even statements from neighbors who saw how much those goats meant to the children on our block. But I didn't stop there. I took it online, started a small blog, posted photos of Milo and Munch with the kids, seniors smiling as they fed them, neighbors laughing by the fence. I told my story, not with rage, but with heart. The post went viral. It spread across local Facebook groups, parenting pages, even Reddit. Comments poured in, "We need more people like you." Karen sounds like a nightmare. How do we help? And help did come. A local news station reached out. They ran a segment called Battle for the Backyard, One Man's Fight for His Therapy Goats. The day it aired, my phone blew up. Even people who'd never spoken to me before waved from their porches. But the real moment? The next HOA meeting. I didn't walk in alone. Behind me came families, parents with kids, seniors with walkers, teens holding up signs, "Let the goats stay," and "Karen doesn't speak for us." Karen stood at the front, arms crossed, jaw tight, but she couldn't hide the panic in her eyes. I stood, took a deep breath, and said, "These goats saved my life. They brought joy to this neighborhood, and if you can't see that, then maybe you're not leading this community. You're just trying to control it." I handed over the documents, the legal support, the signatures. Silence followed. Then one of the board members, an older woman named Delora, leaned into the mic and said, "I motion to reverse the violation and allow these animals as documented emotional support companions." The room erupted in applause. Karen stormed out. And just like that, we won. The very next morning, something magical happened. I stepped out onto my porch holding a bucket of feed, expecting the usual peace and quiet. But what I saw instead nearly brought me to tears. The entire front yard was lined with handmade signs. "We love Milo and Munch," "Neighborhood Heroes," "Karen Who?" Kids from down the block were already there, chalking little goat drawings on the sidewalk. One of them, a girl named Tilly, ran up and hugged Munch like they were long-lost friends. But it didn't stop with the kids. By afternoon, someone had set up a folding table in my driveway, offering goat-shaped cookies and lemonade. A group of neighbors turned it into a mini block party, complete with lawn chairs and music. And then came the moment that sealed it forever. Someone printed 2 little sashes that read, "HOA, support me." They draped them around Milo and Munch like royalty. Even the mayor's assistant showed up later that week with a framed letter calling them ambassadors of community joy. But the biggest shock? The HOA board, under heavy pressure from the community, issued an official statement not only reversing the violation, but introducing a new bylaw. Recognized emotional support animals may be celebrated as community companions when approved by majority neighborhood consensus. In other words, Milo and Munch were now official mascots of the neighborhood. And as for Karen, she didn't last long. She resigned quietly, citing hostile sentiment and personal attacks, though no one harassed her. Truth is, the community just saw through her. Her house? It sits empty now. For sale sign out front, gathering dust. Funny how the loudest voices sometimes vanish the quickest when they're met with truth, unity, and love. These days, I still wake up early, step onto that same old porch, and look out across a yard full of laughter, color, and peace. Milo and Munch wander freely inside their freshly painted pen, ribbons still tied loosely around their necks. Kids wave as they walk by. Strangers stop to take photos. Some even bring them treats wrapped in napkins, like little offerings to two unlikely kings. And me? I'm not just the goat guy anymore. I'm the reminder that standing your ground doesn't make you difficult. It makes you courageous. That community isn't about fences and rules. It's about compassion, understanding, and showing up for one another when it counts. Karen tried to tear that apart. She tried to control what she didn't understand. But all she did was bring a neighborhood closer together. Because what started as a petty complaint about two goats became a story about healing, resistance, and the quiet power of kindness. And every time I see a child's smile light up as Milo nuzzles their hand, I remember one thing. They thought they could silence me with fear, but instead we built a legacy with hooves, hearts, and hope.